everybody. Welcome to the Chester Paul Company podcast and conversation. Joining us today is no other than Dennis Roberts. Good morning, Denny.
Good morning, John.
I will give a disclaimer now to the audience that I will refer to Dennis as Denny. We're long friends, and that's a nickname. It's almost more of a name than Dennis is to these.
All my
these
friends
days.
call me Denny.
Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to make it for this whole 30, 40 minutes referring to him as Dennis. So, how are you this morning?
I'm doing terrific, Sean.
Good, man.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me up. Excited to have a little conversation with you about water treatment.
Yeah, carbon block specifically, but we'll talk carbon and what it can do and what it's good at and the capabilities of today's carbon block and water treatment.
Sure.
But
more important now than ever.
Yeah. So Denny is a long time advocate, friend, and just generally great person, and has always done right in our, I think, combined 50 years. I think we were talking before this that you just celebrated 25 years.
25 years in this industry. That's right, Sean.
Fantastic. Me as well. And throughout those years, Dennis has been a definite advocate of Chester Paul Company, and we've developed a trust in his products that he brings to the table, as well as just his opinion on products and associates. And we've introduced each other to a lot of great people in this great industry. So Dennis is a local Southern California, born in Orange County, and
grew up there.
And currently in Solana Beach, San Diego County.
That's right.
All right. San Diego State.
San Diego State. 1985. Went down to San Diego State. And, it took 6 years to get through it, but I did. and loved San Diego so much.
Maybe you were a little distracted.
Well, I did a year in Japan on exchange programs. So
all right.
That lengthened. I minored in Japanese, so that lengthened things up a little bit. But I love San Diego, and frankly, if I can, spend the rest of my days in San Diego, I'd be a happy man.
Well, it sounds like you're, from what I know, you're working on that. But so, Dennis, I just got raised two young daughters down in San Diego, and I just got a wedding invite from.
Yeah, that's right. Stephanie's getting married in September.
Yeah, very cool. That's fun and scary all at the same time, right?
It's terrific to watch these kids grow up and, get through their school. And, Stephanie just graduated law school and took the bar exam and waiting for results. And it's just, I'm just really proud of those two girls and the direction that they've taken for their lives. And it's exciting to watch them take these big, kind of milestone next steps. Absolutely.
Watching a family grow is rewarding in its own way as a dad and a friend to children. But
absolutely. And
they chose not to follow water. Neither of mine did either, or follow our footpaths into the water treatment world. So
they didn't, and it's not that I didn't try to plant the seed early. I mean, the science fair projects would roll around, and I did a couple of carbon or water treatment science fair projects with the girls, and they were interested in it, but certainly not for a career. But I have loved my 25-plus year career in this industry, and
absolutely
hope to keep that up for years to come.
Yeah, the water treatment folks, especially in the Water Quality Association, more wrapped around water treatment versus wastewater or other waters, but water treatment is a great, unique, meaningful bunch of people. I mean, they're all
without question. Yeah. Without question, a lot of dedicated professionals in this industry. In our world, we really kind of look at consumer-oriented product, residential filtration.
Right.
And that would be, smaller stuff that would be point of use, everything as small as a little sports bottle to something that would sit on your counter, be under your sink, to point of entry to your home.
Sure.
And, that's kind of the lion's share of what we do. But water filtration and water treatment is important to so many industries that we do a little bit in industrial and commercial and food service and such, but the field of water treatment is really much bigger than that, than this little niche that we're focused on at the moment.
Yeah. Well, back to the science fair aspect of things when we were showing our children how to build a science fair project.
Right.
It's easy for the classroom in that example to understand because water's a precious resource. You need to drink it to sustain life. The environment needs it to sustain life. So we all understand the basics of water. And then, taking technology that we're involved with day in and day out and applying it to a science project is fun. Dennis currently is with Marmon Residential Water Filtration Products, which has divisions, or two divisions in that, are KX and Filtrex, right?
Right. We've got KX Technologies and Filtrex Technologies kind of comprise that group. Filtrex was an acquisition by the Marmon Water Group back in 2014, and I really, kind of spent, a number of years working with Filtrex directly, developing the U.S. and global markets for their carbon block products. And, once Marmon acquired it, Filtrex, I just kind of came along and continued to do what I've been doing since 2008.
Well, and KX has been a staple carbon block in the industry for
97.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah, so many, many years. About 25.
Yeah. Magic number.
Obviously, carbon is a broad brush and covers a broad brush of water treatment. It's used in almost every aspect of water treatment. And now you guys are specifically carbon block technology.
That's right.
And my experience with carbon block was, back probably in the 90s, we had a lot of, granular carbon, which is like a 12 by 40 or 12 by 50 mesh size. So little gravel, smaller than gravel, like pea size probably, pellets of carbon. And the water would flow usually down and then back up through the cartridge, getting contact time as it flowed through. Now it's more of a depth type carbon when you're talking block, right? It's forcing through the outer wall into the center core of the carbon block.
That's right.
And the carbon is used, like we said, and when it comes to carbon's used in bottled water most of the time, right? I mean,
carbon's used in all kinds of applications.
Right.
It's really kind of the magic pixie dust for removing both airborne and waterborne contaminants.
Yeah, I think it started as really just the cleaner, right? Like it would kind of reduce some chlorine. And let's get some terminology out of the way. You'll hear Dennis and I use the word reduce, not remove, because you're never removing 100% of chlorine or any other contaminant in the water. Just to be clear, so if a consumer, if you're reading information and it does say it removes chlorine, just for example, be skeptical. A professional would probably always say reduce.
Well, it's a more accurate way to describe it. There's the performance curves, and there's standards of a minimum removal level to be certified for particular claims out there. And yes, for a while you're going to get 100% removal, but the standards require for chlorine it's 50% or more. We do much more than that from a removal percentage standpoint. And then you go up to bulk organics, your herbicides, pesticides, industrial solvents. That's going to be 95% or better reduction. Then you get up into, lead is similar. It's not 100%, but it is, high 90% reduction.
Yeah.
And then you get up into microbiologicals, bacteria, virus, and cysts, and that's still not 100%. Now it's 99.999999% reduction, but not 100% removal. So,
So
so it's good to characterize those two words.
yeah, I just want to make sure that when we say reduce, that's the proper terminology.
That's right.
And back to the uses of carbon, used a lot in drinking water, just strictly to help clean the water, where you're removing or reducing chlorine, chloramines, and some taste, odor type things at the easiest, or the kind of the starting point, right? That's what a carbon block or a carbon filter is going to start off, or should start off, removing or reducing chlorines, chloramines, and cleaning up the taste and odor. And then from there, that scale goes all the way up to the microbiological.
That's right, and they're different. They happen in different ways. There's different mechanisms for reduction.
Sure.
The one that's most prominent out there for municipal supplied water, of course, is chlorine.
Right.
It's used as a residual disinfectant, and doesn't smell great, doesn't taste great, and it's
not good to bathe in. Not good to ingest.
It's good to reduce the chlorine of the water that you're using for cooking, drinking, bathing, showering, that kind of thing.
Right.
The next step up would be chloramine, another residual disinfectant. And then you've got all kinds of other stuff that might be present in the water. We've heard a lot about lead contamination in municipalities across the country, around the world. Volatile organics. Volatile organics are lists of 50 plus different chemicals that could be present in the water. Yeah. Things like your herbicides, your pesticides, your industrial solvents, disinfection byproducts, things such as these.
Now let's just kind of set the stage here, I guess. So when we're talking about on a municipal grid, the water is pulled from source, wherever that source is. It can be wells. It can be surface water from a lake. It can be there's all
really characterized in two basic buckets: surface water and groundwater.
Groundwater, meaning well water.
Well water. Some water that comes from an aquifer that you tap into.
Yeah. And then it gets to the municipality. They're using all of their treatment methods. And their primary job is to deliver a water to your home that, quote unquote, won't make you sick.
Well, I mean, the EPA's done a good job, setting minimum quality requirements for municipally supplied water, and municipalities have to treat the water to meet those requirements, and they do a great job of it. There's a couple problems that we're experiencing right now. One is there's this kind of list of emerging contaminants,
correct,
that are found in surface water, groundwater, that is the source for these municipalities, and their treatment technologies aren't necessarily suited to reduce or remove some of these emerging contaminants. So there's work being done in that area. There's some new, emerging contaminants of concern, and we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah, well, you've got this infrastructure that was built.
Well, then the second thing is the infrastructure.
Well, the infrastructure of the water treatment plant isn't necessarily as modern as one could be. They weren't built yesterday. And then you've got miles and miles and miles of delivery pipe.
Right.
Piped, for lack of a better word, but you've got miles of this delivery infrastructure that's corroded, old. A lot of it is with lead pipes. We've all heard what's been going on in the news with certain cities and schools and whatnot where they pop for lead, and there's always an acceptable amount of contaminants in water. Even the EPA, when they write a lead law or a PFAS law or
disinfectant
byproduct, yeah, there's always an acceptable margin of error, let's say, where you're allowed to have some. But these older infrastructure systems can't keep up with emerging contaminants.
Right.
They can't keep up with corroding and deteriorating infrastructure. And that's where a consumer or a homeowner does well by getting a little bit educated on carbon block and treatment, and then can select a product for underneath their sink or at the entry to their home that will reduce the contaminants that are found in their area. Because contaminants are not equal opportunity. They're not equally a problem across the entire United States or world, for that matter. But for this conversation, I guess in the U.S., you've got different problems in different communities.
I mean, water quality can vary region to region. And then
we start by pulling it from different sources.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And so even within a region, it can vary season to season.
Sure. Well, we pull from different aquifers, or sometimes we're pulling from surface, sometimes we're pulling from wells, groundwater. So the source, let's call it water, changes throughout the year, and
that's right.
Their treatment tries to keep up with that, but it's the magnitude of how much water they're delivering simply can't do it, and that's where a carbon block for a simple underneath the sink technology will go a long way.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, some of our higher end products are capable of reducing 80 different contaminants that may be present in your water. Now, that doesn't mean that, that those contaminants are present in your water, but the product is capable of reducing those contaminants. And most of the claims that we make, if not all, are either, validated through internal testing or third-party validated for performance efficacy.
Yeah, we'll get on to the, what to look for in a carbon block here in a minute, and certification and approvals on things are definitely key. But before we get there, let's talk real quick on kind of some of the key performance indicators as to what makes a carbon block much more better.
Right.
What makes a good carbon block versus one that, like we said, I think the starting point would be with any carbon block. Well, to be fair, you could make such an inferior carbon block that it's actually contaminating the water, and putting off arsenic, for example, into the water. So that would be on the very low end of carbon blocks. And I guess even before we get into the key performance indicators, so when I started, and probably you as well in the industry, coal. Most carbon blocks were coal-based carbon.
Right.
That's all transitioned to, or most of it has transitioned to a coconut base. Why is that?
Well, I mean, to directly answer the question, coal-based carbon, it's a mined material. There's naturally occurring heavy metals and contaminants, that are just present potentially in that carbon. And the problem that we ran into, at least in the world of point of use and the area that we focus on, is there were excessively high leachable amounts of some contaminants of concern, and one of those was arsenic. And so most of the point of use manufacturers have transitioned to a coconut-based activated carbon, because it's far less likely for the coconut shell-based carbon to have this naturally occurring arsenic levels in it. But we still monitor for it because it is possible. Plants uptake stuff from the soil.
Sure.
So if arsenic's present in the soil where these coconut trees are grown, there's a chance that it could be uptaken into the fruit, into the nut.
It's like these farmers that are spraying their Roundup or their chemicals onto the
that's right.
produce where it's actually now found in. Yeah, it's but the so I mean the to the consumer, and then to my mind, we always called coal-based carbon dirty. It was a dirty carbon. Compared to killed not many canaries
right.
drinking that coal-based carbon water.
I mean, if you've ever seen video or images of a coal mining operation, I mean, it's just kind of dirty. And it's kind of nice to look at these coconut shell based carbons. I mean, they're natural. I think they're net. Kind of environmentally friendly from the standpoint they're carbon neutral. So the plant itself will take carbon dioxide out of the air as it grows, and any carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that may be emitted in the preparation of the activated carbon, they pretty much net out to a zero.
Okay, cool. So, and obviously you can plant more coconut, and you can. So it's a more sustainable carbon source, was my understanding as well.
It is, and you know the MATRIKX products have been certified for sustainability with the Water Quality Association, and the fact that we use coconut shell based carbon and it is carbon neutral by itself was you know had a positive impact to our sustainability certification.
Sure. So now that we're using coconut based carbon, and you know I'm looking for things that I can easily identify. What are these, like, the key performance indicators of carbon? What would I be looking for? What are the top few?
Well, I mean so the things we're looking at is, you know, it's surface area or activity level. Surface area has a really kind of a direct impact to its performance.
And then when you say surface area, and we don't want to probably get too far into the granular, to use a funny
nice choice of words,
a descriptive term, but these are all little tiny pieces, almost sand size or smaller. When you say surface area, so you're laying millions of those together, binding those together, creating a lot of surface, right? So they're
the activated carbon functions in two ways. There's a physical sorption and a chemical sorption,
right,
or reduction. On the chemical side of it, it's a catalytic reduction.
Yeah.
So you know, a chemical like chlorine or chloramine comes in contact with the surface of the carbon, and it's converted, you know, through a catalytic process. It's reduced chemically to, you know, chlorine, for example, becomes chloride. Chloramine becomes chloride and some residual ammonia. So that's kind of the catalytic, you know, chemical process that's happening with carbon. And then there's this other, you know, kind of phenomenon with carbon called adsorption.
Yeah.
So the pore volume, or the surface area of all the pores, is important because that's where the work gets done.
Right.
And so, you know, things like your bulk organics, your herbicides, pesticides, industrial solvents, they're dissolved in the water. They come in contact with the carbon, and those chemicals find their way into the pores of the carbon and then attach themselves to the wall of the carbon pore.
So it's truly more of a mechanical type filtration process there. It's not, but it's more than
chemical attraction.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it is driven by the chemistry of it.
Yep.
Versus true mechanical exclusion, which is, you know, true for particulate, turbidity, waterborne cysts like cryptogiardia and sporidium, and these kinds of things.
So it's different than a 25 micron piece floating downstream and being caught in a 5 micron net. It's not right. That mechanical.
It's actually within the pores of the carbon itself.
Right.
So that, you know, we're talking about two important things when it comes to the world of carbon block. You know, certainly the micron rating of the block itself.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So when you look at a carbon block, and when I'm talking with you know, water treatment professionals, the most common questions are micron, what micron rating is it, and what is the capacity of that carbon block, and then what is the flow rate for said capacity. So let's go through those. Let's go through those three things real quick.
So you know, if we take a look at the construction of a carbon block, two basic things go into that. Three, you know, potentially. So we've got the powder activated carbon itself, and then we've got a powdered plastic binder that we mix with the powdered carbon. In the case of lead and heavy metal reduction, there's a lead scavenger that we'll put in with those other two medias. If it doesn't have a lead claim, it's primarily powder activated carbon and the powdered plastic binder. And subject those two materials to heat so that the plastic becomes tacky.
Yeah.
And then some pressure to form the cylinder. and you've made a carbon block.
Got it.
So, there's a lot of options and, different materials you can use for powder activated carbon.
Sure.
It could be wood-based, it could be coal-based, it could be coconut shell-based, it could be lignite-based, bamboo. I mean, anything that's primarily carbon in nature could be converted to activated carbon. And heck, they're even using, bones, animal bones, that they turn into charcoal and then activate as well. It's got some unique properties that is well suited to specific applications. And then on the plastic side of it, the way that with the base material of the plastic, what its characteristics are when it gets heated up, how does it flow, does it just become tacky? So we're looking at those things when we're formulating a carbon block. And then of course there's, if we want to do lead and heavy metal reduction, there's additional medias that we add into that powder.
Add into the carbon.
Yeah, it's affected some heat and pressure, and voila, there's a carbon block.
But you need to, a consumer needs to pay attention to the capacity of said block. So typically they'll be rated at 5,000 gallons, for example, or let's just say for a 10-inch slimline type carbon block like this size, anywhere between 2 and 10,000 gallons of chlorine reduction. Common claim, at 1 gallon a minute.
Right.
So what happens if I flow 5 gallons or if I exceed that minimum flow rate? Because the magic happens with contact time, right?
Yeah, there's right. So water comes into a filter, carbon-based filter, interacts with the carbon. Two things are happening. One, there's this chemosorption or chemical reaction, catalytic reaction that's happening. And then there's also this adsorption into the pores of the carbon of the contaminants that are attracted to the surface of the carbon. And, contact time is important. So we've got to establish some baselines. We've got to do some testing, establish some efficacy data, based on certain parameters. So the influent challenge water is important. The temperature varies or the level of contamination varies. You're going to get different results.
Sure.
And just like with flow rate, we establish a baseline flow rate so that we can make some claims on the products that we provide to market. But, if you flow, like to your example, if it's a 1 gallon a minute flow rate, but you're only flowing at a half gallon a minute, well, you're going to either get more reduction capacity, from a gallon standpoint or from a level of contamination standpoint because you've got more contact time.
Right. So
conversely, if you float at a higher rate,
yeah,
you're going to get less.
Right. So you need to operate. The point being is to look at the stated flow rate and stay below that. When you get above that, you're losing said claims.
Right.
To degrees that we can put on. Also depends how long that block's been in service and so many other things. So if you're staying below that, it's operating a lot closer to what the manufacturer
that's right.
Claimed on the front end.
That's correct.
So we've talked a little bit about what makes a good or a Mobetta carbon block and some things to stay away from. You work with MATRIKX.
That's right.
And I promote MATRIKX as our primary carbon block. Why do we think MATRIKX is such a great product?
Better ingredients, better processing, and certified or validated performance claims. And the MATRIKX brand over the last couple of years has packed a lot of more powerful capabilities into the product.
Right.
And so really I think it's a matter of, the claim set that you get, and when I say claim set, I mean the contaminants that, these products will reduce.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I mean, the price point for the claim set that these products deliver is really unparalleled. I mean, can't be beaten in the marketplace today. So, it's been a terrific couple of years of promoting the MATRIKX brand because, back in 2020, we launched an enhanced version of the MATRIKX product line that included a basic chloramine claim across the board. And we were able to do that as a result of a breakthrough in this proprietary catalytic carbon technology. Chloramine's tough to take out. Standard carbon doesn't work that great.
Yeah, I mean, I remember for years and years, if you wanted to do chlorine reduction in a carbon block, a standard carbon block size, you needed to buy a chloramine specific catalytic carbon, 100% catalytic carbon block.
That's
that
right.
was 5 times more than a standard chlorine reduction block.
That's right.
So obviously, MATRIX has really reinvested in its engineering and research and is kind of putting its money where its mouth is, I guess. If you're including now in a standard price point product chloramine claims.
That's right.
I
So there's 4 basic families. They're on the desk here, and each one of those family of products, and each of the 4 sizes that comprise that family. So 16 products in total, and we've got some new stuff coming out. But each one of those products, formulas, families, sizes, all have a basic chloramine claim, and really that was others are challenged to do the same because other carbon block manufacturers aren't core. They don't have a core competency in actually making catalytic carbon.
Yeah,
so they have to buy it from others and then incorporate it into their product.
Yeah, let's chat on that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the folks that make carbon block in the industry, and a lot of good friends and people I work with make carbon block, but I think you're the only one, or correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really one of the only groups that let's say makes the carbon formula yourself and then makes the block.
That's right. I mean, there's been a huge investment over the years by Filtration and the Marmon residential filtration group in technology, specifically media development. And so there's not just the catalytic carbon itself, which is a proprietary process. It's one that Filtration has done for some time, but we're on the 2nd generation. This really supercharged catalytic carbon capability is for us been around just over 3 years now. But yeah, having advances in media technology and its capabilities directly impacts the kinds of claims, capacities, flow rate, reduction that we're able to deliver in the MATRIX product. So yeah, we're not just buying media from media manufacturers. We're actually taking some of that media and running it through a proprietary process to enhance it. So that's been going on for some time at the Filtrex operation.
And just to give a quick overview of the Filtrex line, you've got a CTO product which does chlorine, chloramine, PFAS, and taste and odor. I mean, it's for an entry level product. I've never heard of such a thing. It's pretty phenomenal.
And what we've done with the CTO line in particular is we had IAPMO is one of the 3rd-party certification bodies that are out in our industry. And so they test stuff that ANSI NSF's
back up a second. Let's undo this. Lay this out a little bit cleaner.
Sure.
So NSF, kind of the godfather of certifications, right? Probably one of the oldest for sure. Then you've got Water Quality Gold Seal, and you've got IAPMO.
Right.
IAPMO, probably the godfather of plumbing certifications and plumbing code improvements and things. So they've been, both of those, NSF and IAPMO, have been doing certifications for a long time, and definitely the leaders of certification in our industry. In most industries similar to this, kind of working similar claim sets as the EPA. If the EPA is claiming a minimum contaminant level, they're when we certify, we're reducing that contaminant to a certain level as well. So
there are a lot of stakeholders in this whole certification, contaminant reduction, contaminant removal. EPA typically takes the lead in like you said, setting MCLs or
Yeah.
maximum contamination levels.
And then different states have different.
Different
California's always raising the bar, and flying the flag. We beat it.
Right. More stringent. I mean, but historically, yeah, NSF, ANSI NSF standards are the gold standard.
Yeah.
NSF does their certifications. They'll put it into their labs and run efficacy testing for the contaminants in question. And IATMO, they follow the same protocols and
Absolutely.
test methodologies.
These three companies I mentioned are all what a consumer is looking for when they're looking for a certified product. A lot of people can claim third-party verification, third-party testing. That just means they're using a lab in-house, out-of-house, and making claims associated with it.
We've come a long way in our industry with regards to claims.
Yeah.
Back in the early days, there were, there were some
Cowboys.
Yeah, making claims that were just simply marketing claims and really didn't have much science or efficacy data to support the claims.
Oh, there's still plenty.
There's still a lot out there.
I poke around on Amazon and different places, and look out.
I mean, look, for a basic chlorine claim, I would generally say if it smells okay and tastes okay, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
But I given my experience with contaminants
in the carbon, you can't taste PFAS.
You can't taste it. You can't taste the PFAS. You can't taste the arsenic. You can't taste the things that, if you've got, poor quality materials going into the construction of that product.
Right.
You run the risk of, introducing bad stuff into the water that you're trying to clean up.
Yeah.
So there's a really basic certification that you should always be looking for at a bare minimum, and that's going to be a material safety certification.
It's a 42. We call it standard 42, and that means that the product is not going to put more contaminants in the water than it started with.
Well, they run an extraction test, and basically they set up the filter to leach out whatever could be leached out from the material. Correct. And then they run an analytic on it to see if there's anything of a concern.
Yeah, they're saying that
it's a long list of things that they're looking for.
They're saying that this product isn't going to hurt you.
Right.
It might not be doing much to the water, but as far as reducing contaminants in the water, but the filter itself is not going to hurt you.
Right, and that's why they call it a material safety certification.
Yeah. So then back to your line. So we've got the CTO, which is your standard,
So 5 micron, entry level product. But entry level, I mean, comparatively speaking, it's head and shoulders above any comparable entry level product. Simply because we've got, when we added the chloramine claim, we also increased the chlorine capacity claim by 50%. And then we added a basic chloramine claim, and just this year, we had the products validated for PFAS reduction with IATMO.
Yeah. And that's across the entire board.
Across the entire, range of 16 different products.
Right.
And that was important because PFAS, boy, it's an emerging contaminant, and it's with a bullet. I mean, there's a lot of press, there's a lot of study, there's a lot of concern about these forever chemicals, collectively called PFAS. I mean, there's we're looking primarily at 2 main, PFAS contaminants, but there are hundreds.
Right.
I've read somewhere 660, and then I read somewhere else it's 4,000. I read somewhere else 10,000.
Yeah, so I think that list is going to continue to grow as we continue to do, research on what these chemicals are and where they came from and the components of the different the compounds have changed by when they're adding and removing things, making these different. They're industrial chemicals.
They're industrial chemicals.
Some was Teflon. Some was.
They use in non-stick cookware is a big one.
Yeah.
Here domestically, and stain resistant fabrics like carpet, for example.
Right, like different
or clothes that you would wear. Anything stain resistant, materials that are used.
It's also in the fire retardant that the planes are
fire
driving.
retardant. So that's a big contributor.
It was a extremely popular industrial chemical or list of chemicals here in the U.S. The U.S. no longer is using these.
Not making them.
Not making them. However, they are in China, India, many other places of the world.
Yeah, there's still products that contain these chemicals that are being imported, though we're not, manufacturing more of these chemicals today.
We're not making them here, but there is no regulatory that says you can't import this product. So there's still plenty of it.
Yeah, and there's, they're continuing to study this. I mean, obviously, if it didn't have any impact to our health, we wouldn't be worried about it, right? But the studies are indicating there's a long list of potential health impacts with the, by consuming or introducing these PFAS chemicals. It's plural. I mean, there's a number of
this body. This body of chemicals.
So the problem is they call it forever chemical.
Yeah, it doesn't
break down in the environment, and it doesn't break down in our bodies.
Right.
So we don't actually get rid of it. We don't filter it out. We don't excrete it. We don't. It doesn't.
No, they've done testing where newborns are found with these chemicals.
That's right.
In their blood. So I mean, it's. Erin Brokovich says that it'll give you a small penis. So we'll put that article in the show notes so nobody thinks I made that up.
It's not small penis, but it's low sperm count.
Oh.
So her big worry is that, the human race as we know it today is at risk because come 2045 sperm counts will be so low that we won't, as humans be able to reproduce.
Yeah, there's a whole laundry list of health concerns with it. We're going to put, so we don't get too far into the weeds or get distracted by body parts any longer. We'll put, the California Water Board has a great article on it. There's a few environmental groups that have great articles on it. We've got some heat maps and some other things that...
Yeah, we've got some cool stuff. Thyroid disease, increased cholesterol levels, liver damage, kidney cancer, testicular cancer for men. I mean, women reproductive. I mean, it's a pretty.
So it's new, and some of these points of view obviously come with a bias or their own narrative. But we know it is a problem, and we know that we call it an emerging contaminant in the water treatment world, and all that means is that it's new. We don't know everything about it. However, we've identified that it's not good for you, and it's going to become, a big talking point. It'll be in the media more and more. It's not going away. Literally, it's not going away. It stays in you forever. It's it's estimated. I mean, I've seen numbers that are anywhere from 100 to 200 million Americans are, drinking water that's been contaminated with these PFAS chemicals. It's a lot of men that are going to be shy. Oh shoot! All right, so we'll help you wrap the PFAS or PFAS. The data behind that, we'll put all of that in the description and then in the notes so that you can dive deeper into it. But so we've also got a lead block,
right?
And in a lead block, you're going to reduce a lot of heavy metals, right? It's not necessarily a lead. I mean, lead is the specific.
It's capable of reducing other heavy metals,
right?
Things like mercury or cadmium.
Yeah.
For example, lead is seems to be the contaminant that has the highest awareness out in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
But there are other heavy metals that could be present in the water, and lead's interesting. I mean, you've got two species of it or versions of it.
Yeah, you got dissolved,
and particulate.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we talked about filtration earlier, mechanical exclusion. Well, the dissolved is this chemical absorption, physical absorption piece. Mm-hmm. And then the particulate is it's a true mechanical exclusion.
You're catching chunks of lead.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean
that's how you take it out.
If you can envision a lead pipe flaking off,
that's right.
and actually just blocking the piece of lead from going downstream. Yeah,
right.
And lead is well known that it's extremely damaging to health, especially in more vulnerable.
You want to avoid
Yeah.
ingesting lead,
Yeah.
whether water or foods.
Yeah. And then finally, we've got a chloramine specific product, right? Like it's 100% catalytic.
Yeah, if chloramine reduction's mission critical to the application, we've got a product specifically developed for chloramine reduction. While you get a basic chloramine claim in the CTO, CTO plus, and PB1, the ChlorGuard product is really there for these mission critical applications. So we do the 4 different sizes, right? So you get higher flow rates as you go up in size.
Yeah.
You get higher capacity claims, from the number of gallons.
You just have a larger amounts of media.
More carbon, more carbon, more lead scavenger, more reduction.
So for the pros, that's a 10-inch slimline, 20-inch slimline, 10-inch large diameter or big blue, 20-inch large diameter big blue.
Right.
And again, so there's a CTO, which is chlorine, taste, odor, chloramine, and PFAS reduction.
That's right.
At a super hot price. Totally the value proposition on that product. Probably, I would say there's nothing better.
You challenged it.
I think I have said that.
You encouraged somebody.
I was trying to write $1,000 check.
You were trying to write $1,000 check.
And then we've got a CTO Plus product, which does the VOC claims, which is
right. You get some VOC and just more of the chloramine, PFAS. Yep. Then you've got the PB1, which introduces the lead scavenger, and it's also cis capable. Yep. So it's it's a submicron product, and you're going to get the lead and heavy metals in addition to your chlorine, chloramine, cis, volatile organics, these kinds of things. And then the ChlorGuard product is just more of that catalytic carbon. Yeah. For those,
much higher capacities. Yeah. There are some critical applications,
dialysis, such as, pharmaceutical, brewing, food service,
and that gets back to having bypass again, where you're really concerned with reducing as much of the contaminant as you can.
Yeah, in the world of dialysis, it is removed.
It's critical.
It's removed. Yeah, you can't have any of those residual oxidants in the water that you're putting into a human body.
Blood.
Now we're talking about water for injection quality. Yeah. So that's a whole other ball game than just drinking water for cooking.
Right. So how does a consumer or a pro identify, hey, what's in this neighborhood's water? What are we? We could get into the nitty gritty, but really, first step is
there's two basic ways to figure out what's in your water, and I recommend probably doing both. If you go to your municipality's website, they're required to publish a water quality analysis of the water that they're delivering to their customers, and then I think it's important to also test your water on site. Because of the infrastructure issues that we discussed earlier, while that water may be good leaving the municipality, once it gets into that aging infrastructure system and finds its way to, the place of use, it could have picked up a number of things along the way.
Yeah. So you're going to typically find this product in a simple 1, 2, 3 stage carbon type filtration system.
And these standard sizes, you're gonna, the 10-inch filter is primarily going to be your point-of-use filter. Right. It could be something sitting on your countertop or sitting under your sink. As you get into these larger sizes, we're starting to, do pre-filtration for light commercial industrial ROs. When you get into the 4.5-inch diameter, you start looking at, point of entry to a home.
Sure.
So, or other high volume applications. We do a lot of work with an OEM that, services the McDonald's to the Coca-Cola spec, and
sure,
they use a 4.5 by 20 inch. That thing's 8 gallons a minute and 500,000 gallons for chlorine reduction. Yeah. So
a homeowner again, is going to see, you're going to have a few choices of what you're looking for. You're looking at
First is size.
well, no,
What size
I
do
mean,
you
but
need?
typically underneath your sink, you're going to have either a carbon filtration system that's multiple stages or even a single stage, whatever that is, but it's still a carbon filtration system, or you're going to probably look toward a reverse osmosis.
Right.
And in a reverse osmosis, you're typically using 1 to 2 carbon blocks, sometimes 3 as well. So in a reverse osmosis, we know the membrane is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. This is kind of treating the water before and after the filtration, but just as critical. So I think it's up to the homeowner to say, okay, here's what I think is in my water, or here I've actually done a water analysis, and here's specifically what's in my water.
Right.
So you're going to have carbon blocks if you're probably going to be putting in a drinking water system. And once you've identified what carbon block to use or what system you're going to buy, we've talked a lot about certifications. We've talked a lot about capacities. What's something, the homeowner obviously needs to service this. So, we're not going to get down there counting gallons, right? So, I mean, typically, how often are we changing carbon blocks in a home?
For an under counter system, something like in this 10-inch format.
Yeah.
I would just set it based on the calendar once a year.
Once a year. Yeah.
Yeah, change it once a year. There are more sophisticated systems that have monitoring capabilities.
Sure.
It will tell you how many gallons have passed through the filter and indicate to you when it needs to be changed.
Yeah,
I think it's once a year, or to the extent kind of the smell or taste, starts to degrade a little bit, indicating that there's some breakthrough of chlorine or chloramine.
Yeah.
It's time to change your filter, but just put it on the schedule once a year, and just swap out the filters. In fact, a lot of the companies today are offering auto ship programs, so you don't even have to think about getting a replacement filter. We do a lot of filtration for appliances as well. So, they have a little, change filter indicator, and they're changing those filters roughly every 3 months. But for something like this, once a year, if you go with the CTO Plus product, which is, a little tighter block, a little finer mesh material, more surface area, roughly double the capacity of the CTO. Maybe you get that, you spend a little extra money for it, but you only change your filter once every 2 years. So, you get some payback and
Yeah, I think
longer life.
I think the key is identifying, what you think is right for you, and then buying a quality block. Now, if I'm a consumer going out to buy that quality block, what do we want to leave? I guess the consumer or the pro. What are the top 3-5 things? 3 to 5 things.
Reputable company, I think, is important. Company that's been around a while, like the Filtrex, the KX and the MATRIKX brand has been. Certifications, at the very least, you want to see a material safety certification to make sure that it's been tested for, things that might be, for the bad stuff that might be leaching from the material. Yeah. Certainly claims, and I think more importantly, claims that have been validated and the manufacturer brand can substantiate that. The unfortunate thing about what we do is that we can't actually we can have it validated, these performance claims, but we can't get a performance certification.
Yeah.
Because we're not actually making the system.
Right. No,
we're just a filter that goes in the system, and they only performance certify systems.
Right.
But to the extent that we've got third-party IATMO validated chlorine, chloramine, and PFAS, along with a lot of internal testing on lead, heavy metals, cyst reduction on our PV1 product, we certainly have demonstrated that we're delivering on the efficacy on the marketing claims that we make with regards to performance.
So I'm gonna wrap that a little probably easier or shorter. We're looking, just in a nutshell, the guy's looking, or the consumer's looking for quality company, certified product, which means reviews don't necessarily tell the whole story, because, like we talked about earlier, a customer cannot taste arsenic, PFAS, lead. So I think a review is based on it works. It didn't plug up my water.
Right.
So you really want to do the homework on, is this product certified? Is it made by a reputable company? Do the capacity claims suit my needs? And do the contaminant reduction claims meet my needs? If you hit those key performance pieces, I think you're going to be happy with the carbon block.
You make a good choice if you're looking at those things.
And I mean, MATRIX has always been a gold standard in block, and over the past few years, they've added more feathers to the cap than anybody else. That's for certain. And adding chloramine and PFAS across the entire offering of product at really no additional charge.
We didn't raise the price for chlorine or for chloramine or for PFAS.
Cool. I think we've hit the talking points on carbon block today. Anything you want to leave us with on carbon block today?
Well, we're with regards to the MATRIX brand, we're launching some new products. So we've got a radio flow product. It's actually granular, but it looks like a block. So 4.5 by 10 and 4.5 by 20 inch versions of that. Mm-hmm. And we're launching a small inline filter line. It's going to be, so that's the tube of plastic with the carbon media inside. The difference is it's going to be carbon block across the entire range.
You're taking your existing platform of range of products and encapsulating it with, a 1/4 inch type connection on either end.
That's right.
And bringing the same quality block in a different platform that's just a different delivery system, really.
That's correct. That's right.
So
cool. So excited about the new products, and we're continuing to invest in technology and innovation, and as more things become available for commercial application, we'll be adding those new things to the products as we go forward.
Awesome, my man. Well, I think we covered it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great chat. It went by fast.
Went by very fast.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
I felt like I froze in time during the penis portion, but we'll overcome that.
Okay, and, all right. Well, I'll let you handle that.
Well, yeah, that's all good.
I'm just gonna forget it ever happened.
I like it. We'll put a bunch of notes or links to some studies or reference material that we spoke about. Hey, thank you for watching us today. We're also going to put in some links. Dennis and I have had some much more extensive talk on specific things that were in this video, such as each block and capacities and claims and whatnot. Those will be in the notes as well. And again, thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Sean.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
That was fun. Let's hope we entertained and enlightened a few. And again, thanks for hanging out with us today. Have a wonderful day.
Take care, everyone.